Hey everybody, this is Kelsey Dion from the Arcane Library, and today I'm going to walk you through a 4th through 6th level adventure for Shadowdark RPG, which is found in Curse Scroll 2. So this adventure is called Fortress of the Burning Brothers. Here we have the introductory pages to it, and this adventure's premise is that there is a big iron fortress deep underground in a cave. And this fortress was once a stronghold and a mine that was held by Durgar, or Grey Dwarves. You know, I've never been sure about how to pronounce that one. But this was once their fortress, and then an invading group of efreet from the city of Brass took it over and are now using it. So what's going on at the start of this adventure is that there are two twin brother efreet who are here, and they are vying for their father's favor because their father has to choose a successor, and them being twins, the laws of the city of Brass require that one of them be chosen. So the father has sent them here to sort of duke it out on their own with the expectation that one of them will end up killing each other. But it has to be done legally and by the laws of the Sultan, so neither of them can overtly off each other, and they're going to have to be creative about it. So the players are walking into this interesting setup where we have some factions already ready to go inside the dungeon. So one thing you'll notice about this adventure is it's a 2-level dungeon. So here you can see there's this map that has the upper level fortress area and then the lower level, which are the mines down here. Now the upper level is controlled by the brother Gaspar, who also has a contingent of salamanders who obey him. And then down below we have the brother Malik, who is the much more frail but cunning brother who's more of a wizard, and he has used enchantment magic to basically convince all of the Dwargar that they are his loyal followers. So the two brothers are sort of very different in their natures, and they're now preparing to pit themselves against each other to see who can triumph as the superior brother. Now, this adventure starts off with a few rumors that you can use that are actually in voice, so you can share them as if they were coming from an NPC. So, for example, one of the rumors is, "Those haunted mountains are rich with ore. Aye, and my uncle tried to set up a mining operation in them too. Last fool thing he ever did. We haven't seen him in 20 years. So those are the kinds of hooks you can use to try to pull your players into being interested in the area that this adventure is set, which is a cave that's actually within nearby mountains. So each of the two major zones in this dungeon, the upper fortress level and then the lower mines, has its own explanation and setup about what the environment contains. So for example, in the iron fortress up above, it explains to you the light, explains the walls and how those work if the characters are possibly going to consider scaling them. There's a river of magma, so the rules here explain how to handle that. And then it explains one of the more intricate moving parts of this dungeon. So in the upper level in the fortress, there are salamander guards. And there are guards positioned in each of the towers, in the upper level of each of the towers, overlooking the big cave that this adventure is set in. So a part of this adventure probably includes some infiltration on the part of the characters, because they would not want to just storm through the front doors and face every possible enemy all at the same time. That would be a suicide mission. What you're going to want to do is check out the information in here about the guards and how they do their rotations and the opportune moments where the characters will have to sneak in. Now, most of the time the guards are looking out into the cavern, and to just move in plain sight and not be noticed by them is pretty difficult. That's a DC 15 dexterity check. What I would do is, if your group is actually taking effort or using magic or doing something to disguise their approach, I wouldn't make them roll in that case. But if they're just gonna walk right up to the walls, then I would definitely have the guards start rolling. If the salamander guards notice any approaching enemies, they all have these brass gongs that they can ring. And if one of them does so, it's going to set the upper level of the dungeon into alert. And we have an order of battle in here that explains what the salamanders do when they go into alert. But roughly speaking, all of the salamanders who are in the towers will shoot with their longbows and stay up there, and then all of those salamanders who are in the lower level are going to take a couple rounds to muster in the central courtyard. Some will go off to protect their efreety Lord Gaspar, and then others will begin a systematic sweep. Now, some of the key locations in the upper fortress level are going to be the central courtyard, which is right here in this middle area. And then you have several towers with a few things going on in each of them. But the important thing to note is that each of the brothers has allies that they've been sending to spy on each other. So downstairs, Malik with the Duergar has been sending some of his Duergar upstairs to use their invisibility and to try to gather intelligence on what Gaspar, the other brother, is doing and planning. And then meanwhile, Gaspar has been sending salamanders down, or actually one salamander in particular, down into the mines below to sneak around and look around. Also, there is a character running around, an NPC, who looks like a salamander, but who is actually a Rakshasa. And that Rakshasa is working in the service of Malik, the downstairs brother. So he is amongst the salamanders, sort of trying to see if there are any who might be turncoats or to try to gather intelligence. One thing that's really going to be helpful here is because there are so many potential NPCs that the characters might talk to, you'll want to use these lists we have. We have an entire list of 22 possible salamander NPCs with a quick description of what they look like and sort of their personality. And then we have 20 Duergar NPCs. So some NPCs in this key are already named, but if you come across an NPC that is not named and you need one, you can just jump straight to those lists and start pulling from there. All right, now onto some key locations that you'll want to know about before you sit down to run this adventure. In the upper fortress area, we have actually a central courtyard, and then there is a magma river that is running through it, and that splits the courtyard in half. There's a bridge that goes over the top of it. So magma is very dangerous, and the characters are going to need to be careful if they're trying to cross it anywhere except that bridge. Underneath the bridge, when the characters get here, there is a Duergar who's hiding there who had come up to spy, and they might encounter him and might be able to talk to him. Now, some other important locations. In Area 8, that is the main tower, and that is where Gaspar is currently or most likely to be. He's either in there or he's in his room, which is also in that same tower. And he is surrounded by a couple of very alert salamander guards, so he's difficult to get to. Another important area is Area 5, which is the mess hall. And there are a lot of salamander guards in there, as well as some sleeping in a connected room. And one thing to note that while the rest of this dungeon is risky, so you're checking for a random encounter every 2 rounds, in the courtyard in particular, it's actually very dangerous. So you're gonna be checking for encounters every round because it's such a high traffic area. So the characters are gonna be a little bit safer when they're actually within the rooms instead of out in the open. Another important location is Area 18. This is actually where there are 3 nightmares, like the horses with the fiery manes, and those 3 are thoroughbred racing nightmares that belong to Gaspar, and they're sort of one of his weaknesses, and he might want to negotiate with the characters about those nightmares if they're threatened in some way, and they're also just kind of dangerous, so if the characters just run in there, you know, they might suddenly be facing down 3 angry nightmares. So the next important area I want to draw your attention to is Area 13 up here, and that is a former temple to the Duergar god Dorgrim, and the efreet trashed it when they invaded, and now there is just a fallen statue of Dorgrim in there that is actually an iron golem, but it's not working because its ruby eyes have been removed, and those are what powers it. Those eyes are actually in the complex, or in the mines with the downstairs efreet brother, Malik, and so he has them, but he doesn't know what they do. Meanwhile, his upstairs brother Gaspar does know what those eyes do, but doesn't know where they are. So if Gaspar can find them, he wants to activate the iron golem to use it as an accidental tragedy that he'll send down into the mines to conveniently take out his brother. So it's kind of a race to see who can get their hands on those eyes and figure out what they do first. And the last thing I want to point out about this upper level are 2 connected rooms. We have Area 14, which is a vault. We have Duergar coming from the mines downstairs up to place a bunch of gold and iron ingots in here. And what's happening with those ingots is they're being taken into room 15, which contains an extra-planar portal to the City of Brass. It's a big curtain of fire on the south wall. And that curtain actually opens up onto a balcony in the City of Brass that is guarded by 4 efreet. Now, nobody's allowed to pass through it, so especially Malik and Gaspar, they're not allowed to return to the City of Brass until they resolve who the successor is going to be to their father. But enterprising characters might figure out a way to get through there, and if they do, then suddenly they're in the City of Brass. And so you can decide if you want to let that proceed or if you're going to have the guards be extra strict and just really not let any interlopers through, but that could be a fun side diversion. All right, and then a sort of last word about the upper level here. Well, first of all, there are a lot of entrances from the upper level down into the mines. They're all noted on the map and which room they go to, but just bear in mind that there are a few, so the characters have a few options for how they may sneak down into the mines. And then the last thing, of course, is that Gaspar, the upper level efreet brother, he isn't out to just kill the PCs. He probably would want to recruit them to send them against his brother and sort of claim or disclaim responsibility or knowledge. So if the characters get captured or found out in the upper level, they'll most likely be taken before Gaspar, and he is not going to just order their execution. He's going to really try to get them to work for him. If things don't work out between the characters and Gaspar, he will throw them in the upper dungeon, and there are plenty of ways to escape from it, so that doesn't necessarily mean the end for the characters. If they become imprisoned, it might be that Malik finds out about them and then tries to recruit them over to his side by sending some Dwargar up to rescue them. So there's lots of ways for the characters to get themselves into trouble, but then out of trouble. Okay, so then let's talk about the mines level downstairs, which is this level. So this is Malik's domain. Malik is the less organized brother, and the Dwargar are not very militant or organized either. So the Salamanders have a much more regimented response to intruders, whereas the Dwargar just kind of start yelling for help and running around. So if the characters make it down here, they might be able to sneak around pretty effectively without causing too much of a stir. And there's also a lot of noise from the mining and smelting down here, so it's pretty forgiving about being heard or spotted. And it's not as easy for the characters to get detected. The checks are lower, and there's a lot more kind of little hidey holes to stay out of sight down in the mines. One thing that's important to note is that all of the Dwargar have been magically brainwashed by Malik into having sort of fanatical, cultish loyalty to him. Malik is a sorcerer, and he's been able to leverage a lot of magic to try to get at what he wants, as opposed to his brother Gaspar, who's more of a warrior. So it's hard to find any Dwargar who would just turn against Malik. There is one, and that is actually Torgrim, who's in Area 20. Torgrim is the head of the Forge Works, and he's sort of faking his loyalty to Malik, and so he's an important Dwargar who the characters might actually be able to persuade to their cause and help them maybe persuade other Dwargar to their cause if they want to go that route. And to the point of maybe inspiring a rebellion, there is one really effective way the characters could do that. So there is a hidden cave, and that's Area 35. The only way to get to it is either by breaking through the wall in Area 33, or by somehow getting up a magma river to this isolated room. And there's a very important artifact in that room. It is a warhammer called Thorgal the Anvil, and that is a treasured artifact that was wielded by the Dwargar heroes who once occupied this entire fortress. So if the characters can get their hands on that, any Dwargar they show it to is going to immediately switch their loyalty over to the characters. So they might be able to inspire an entire rebellion in the lower levels if they're able to do that. And there are a few hints scattered around the mines about Thorgal, its existence, and possibly even where to find it. And then I just want to touch on a few other important areas inside the lower level mines. First of all, Malik has his lair in Area 21, which is right off of the main Forge Works. The door is guarded by two of his precious pet hellhounds. There are more in the lower level, but he has them trained to work as his guard dogs. And then connected to his chambers is actually a secret room, Area 22, which is his wizard lair. And it is here that he's making attempts to summon an earth elemental, like a powerful earth elemental. And so far he hasn't quite been able to maintain control of this earth elemental, so that room is really all beat up and not in great shape. But his plan is to summon one and control it for long enough to set it loose upstairs and then have a tragic accident happen to his brother. But so far he's still struggling to get the control of the spell down. And it is in his lab that you will find the two ruby eyes that power that iron golem upstairs in the fallen sanctuary. The next important area of note is going to be Area 25, which is down in the corner here. That is actually where a Naga is living. Now this Naga is nobody's ally. Its name is Vilaxus, and it is there simply to observe the brothers and make sure that they follow the laws of the Sultan in their endeavors. And so this Naga will willingly talk to the characters about either brother, And it's really just interested in seeing who the victor is and being able to report back to the city of Brass that all the laws were followed and that yes, the triumphant brother is truly by law the heir to his father's throne. The next area I want to talk about is area 28, which is down in the lower other corner here. And that one has 6 hellhounds and their trainer Morgrid, a Dwargar. And these are Malik's pet hellhounds, and they're kind of a nasty room to run into if you're not expecting them, so the characters will want to tread carefully inside there. And then just north of that room, through a locked door right here, is a sort of abandoned and forgotten cavern that's on the other side of the magma river, and so it's not very accessible. But in this cavern is hiding a salamander spy who is down here on behalf of Gaspar. And this spy will try to hide from the characters by diving into the magma river, but they might be able to make an alliance with him, depending on where their loyalties lie inside this dungeon. And so those are all the major areas of note for this dungeon. Again, Malik, the downstairs brother, would probably want to negotiate with the characters if he captured them and try to convince them over to his side to defeat his brother. So it's again not a totally lost cause if the characters get captured. Gaspar might try to free them if he discovers they're there and imprisoned by his brother. So again, lots of ways to get out of a bad situation, and it'll be really interesting to see who the characters decide to align with, if either, if they try to play any tricks on either brother, and who ends up triumphing. You know, maybe the characters will defeat both brothers and end up taking over the fortress themselves. You never know. So if you guys decide to run this adventure, I'd love to hear how it goes for you. Leave a comment below, and otherwise, happy gaming, have a lot of fun, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.